where was the exchange made that this was more important to me than what God thinks is important? Or this is more important to me than what God actually wants to happen in my life. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So it's well into 2023, but that is perfectly fine, right? Happy New Year to everybody, y'all. We are at 400 subscribers. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed, who has commented, who has liked. Thank y'all so much. Is that the right word? I seriously appreciate it. Y'all are the best, and we're only 100 away from 500. And when I hit 500, then something exciting is gonna happen. I really don't know how to even jump into this video because it's been a little bit of a minute. But today I am gonna be doing a faith chat, but these are gonna be kind of different. I feel like the space that God has me in now in my walk with him is just different. I'm growing deeper in my relationship with God, and I kind of want the faith chats to reflect where I'm going with God. I'm gonna be being a little bit more transparent in these videos and the stages that I'm going through in my walk with God. So today will be the first installment of a little bit of a shift in the faith chat series. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I feel like God, yes, has been dealing with me, throughout the years, but I feel like it's come up recently this year, and it is God's will versus our will. I also feel like this is super important to talk about with it being the start of the year. This is just an important topic, period. But with it being the top of the new year, we always make all of these plans. We have all of these goals to travel more, to save money, to spend more time with family. And those things are not bad, but I think before we even get started with saying, God, here's my list that I'm laying out before you, to just take a minute and be like, no, God, but what do you want? But what really is your will? What do you want for me? What do you want for this year? What is your vision? Give me what you want me to have rather than us just coming with our laundry list of things. So, and like I said, those things are not bad, but it's just heart checking ourselves and making sure that we're asking God what he wants first, because his will is ultimately why we're here. His will is ultimately why we're doing this thing called life. So I thought it was super important to talk about. And for me, I think how this has been coming up is, like I said, at the beginning of the year, I think I just had a shift in my heart, because I wasn't really asking God, I think, for anything huge for myself. I was just like, God, well, what do you want? There are things that you've given me last year, y'all. If you've been on my channel, you know it's crazy. A lot of stuff happened. So I feel like I kind of was still, I guess, maybe on a high. And I'm like, God, I don't really need anything. What do you want? And I mean, granted, I know that sounds like the picture perfect answer, but I really did feel like you've given me so much. Let me see what you want. This is really not about me. Until there were situations that came up that I realized that I thought I was, giving it to God and saying, God, your will, not mine. That was until I was faced with things I really, really wanted. Like I said, in the beginning, I didn't have specifics, but as the year kind of went on, I was like, oh, I would kind of like for this to happen, or I would kind of like for that to happen. And that was what I had within my will for myself. If I'm being honest, within my will, there were some things that I really, really wanted and desired. And I'm like, God, I'm going to give this to you. And I would say that, and it sounds good, but I had to really sit and allow God to just humble me, but also work through the process of giving my will over and picking up his will, or really for real wanting his will to be done. Because I think it's so easy to say God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Yes to your will, yes to your way. That should be our heart posture. But when you're staring at something you really, really want, and this is within, something that you will or want for yourself, it's harder to then say, God, I'm going to give this over to you. And I feel like it's so many layers to that, but I think it's so easy for us as Christians to be like, yes, Lord, yes to your will, yes to your way, I'll do whatever you want me to do, when we haven't had to give up anything, or we haven't really seen the magnitude of what we're going to have to get up and lay at the feet of Jesus. We should be laying everything at the feet of Jesus, but in our flesh, it's easy to be to say that, but to actually do it is different. If I'm being 100% honest, there were some things that I wanted that I had to lay at Jesus' feet that I struggle with, because I'm like, God, I really want this to happen. And I think that's the problem. When I took my eyes off of God and I put it on things or situations or whatever I had in my will for myself, plans, whatever, that's when things got kind of lopsided, and I had to again, like go back and realize, no, like God, I really do want your will. And I think the interesting thing about it is God will sometimes let us get little taste of the very thing that's in our will for ourselves, or the very thing that we think we want, only to then like just watch it blow up in our face with only getting a little taste of it. If it's blowing up in our face and the whole thing hasn't even come to fruition, I feel like that is evidence that God is showing us like my will is gonna always 5,000% be better than anything you could will. My will is always gonna supersede yours. And in my life, I was seeing like God was giving me a little taste of things that I thought I wanted, and walking through it and seeing like the end of it, even though it didn't completely happen or whatever, I'm just like, whoa, this is why you say like seek my will in all the things that we do. Like we're supposed to be seeking your way in everything. But like I said, it's easy for us to say that when we haven't had to give up anything. I feel like that's the beautiful thing about walking with Christ. Like when you get to the point where you can say, God, I'm going to give up this thing that I really, however many reallys it takes you, however bad you want it. It's being able to be in the spot where it's like, God, I really want this thing and I'm struggling with it. I don't really know how to give this to you, because if I had like a perfect picture in my mind of how my life is going to go, this thing would be in it. But nevertheless, not my will, your will be done. And I think that is like the true testament where you know that Jesus really does have your heart. Because for you to be staring at something, like I said, that you are like wanting and desiring, and you're just like, God, I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna surrender back to you, shows that your focus and your heart really is on Jesus, which is what we should be striving for. But that doesn't mean that it's always going to be an easy process. It's just getting to a spot where you realize like, God, your will is always going to be better than mine. And I feel like Jeremiah 29:11 is a verse that we love quoting, like God knows the plans that he has for us. They're plans to prosper us, not to bring us harm. We say those things, but we kind of still like want to be our own God. And in some ways we do want to control things. And I think that's another huge thing when we're not submitting our will over to God. It often is like about control. I know for me, I like to know what's going to happen. So if I like to know what's going to happen, you can automatically assume I like to control the outcome of things or see how it's going to go. And God let me get some taste of that too as well. And I was just like, it was that explosion of things just blowing up that I was like, God, I don't want to do that, because I've seen how it goes. So I know, I already knew, but you've given me another like example to know and to show me that your will is going to be better. And I can trust that if what I want to happen for myself is in your will, is going to happen. But if it's not, then that's not your best for me, or that's not what you want for me. When it comes to saying yes to God's will, it's not going to be easy. It's going to come with a lot of surrender. And surrender is like a pretty word. It sounds pretty and it is beautiful, but walking through it, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's rough. If you're going through a situation right now and it's like there's something that you really want, I really want to encourage you to like continue pressing into God and your private time with him, because he will work those things out of you. For me, I constantly had to surrender that thing. And I had to get to the place where I was not embarrassed that I kept picking it back up, even though I'm like, God, I told you I was going to give you this. And I told you like, yes to your will, yes to your way, but I picked up my will and I picked up my way again. So I'm having to come back and lay this down. But I think there's beauty in that, because it's like God is like literally teaching you how to let things go. In you picking it back up and then realizing that's God's grace, that you're even realizing, man, I picked this thing up again. But it's like he's giving you a chance to lay it at his feet for real and continue to move forward. And there are some things in your walk with Christ, I'm gonna not sugarcoat this, because I mean it is what it is, but there are some things that you could legitimately want for your life, and God may literally tell you no. And it sucks and that's hard, but that's literally a reality we face like as Christians. Like there are going to be some things that we want that God may say no to. And it's like, but will you still say like yes to your will? It's really having to trust that God is not withholding from you when you're not getting those things that you want, because the Bible never says like he's going to give us everything we want. He says he's going to supply all of our needs according to his riches and glory. Needs and wants are two different things. So even with that, God has really just been showing me so many things about his will. And it's literally like, why would I ever want anything more than his will? Because his will is literally everything. God is perfect. I am imperfect. His ways are perfect. My ways are not perfect. His thoughts are perfect. My thoughts are the furthest thing from perfect. So it's like, why would even for like one bit of a second, if we're holding up our resumes, God's resume against mine is gonna trump me every time, and I look real dumb. Compared to God, just straight down. It's like, why, if I know those things, do I still then, it's like my flesh is like, but like, it's like your flesh sometimes will convince you, like sometimes things will be different, but it's like, no, God's way is always better, period. Like there's nothing else that needs to be said. There's nothing else that needs to be added. And his will is always gonna be perfect, like God's. And then the thing is too, I think it's interesting how for me, there were some things that I really, really wanted and would be, like I said, within my will for myself. And then I looked back on it when it kind of blew up, and I'm like, well, why did I really want that? And I think sometimes I can admit for myself, I do tend to think a lot about things, but I think there's even a deeper depth to go. Like, why do I really desire this? Why do I really want this? Why would I be upset? Or why would I not feel okay if God says, no, that this is not for you? Because it's like, at some point, where was the exchange made that this was more important to me than what God thinks is important? Or this is more important to me than what God actually wants to happen in my life. Like, I'm missing the bigger picture by being fixated on what I want, when God is like doing something completely different, but I'm missing it because I'm like, no, but it should happen this way. No, but this should be in my story. No, but this should be in your way. Like, it's pointless. I realize it's pointless doing that. But I think there is just grace and mercy in how I don't understand it. Because I literally feel like there was grace in a lot of the things that God was showing me in his will, and always making sure that I'm seeking and longing for his will. And it's interesting too, because the Bible says that our hearts are deceitful. So the things that you want in your heart sometimes are not always right, just period. Like, the Bible literally says our hearts are deceitful. If our hearts can deceive us, it's like, how do we really know what we think is good or should be in God's will for our life? So it's like, it makes sense that God calls us to like lay everything at his feet and surrender everything over to him, so that he can check our heart in the process and make sure, like, God, this is something I really want, but the Bible, like your word literally said my heart is deceitful. So I can't even 100% trust my heart, but I can 100% trust you. And I think that's another incredible thing about God's will. Like, God can be trusted to keep his word. God can be you can trust that God does have good plans for you, because that's what his word says. You can trust that God's will is going to be good because he's perfect. You can rest assured, even if you don't get the very thing you want. And I finally got to this point, and I'm like so thankful to God that I did get to this point. And this will be a lifelong thing that I have to keep reminding myself, like, no, but you need to see God's will. No, but did you see God's will? Like, asking myself and then telling myself to go back there and do it. But just to know that he has a perfect plan for my life, and I don't have to micromanage. I don't have to try to make stuff up for myself. Like, I can't beat anything that he's going to come up with, not even in the slightest. It's not even it's not even going to compare, period. So I'm grateful for the times that God has shown me, literally, the thing that you want is so bad for you, or the thing that you want is just not what I have for you. Because sometimes it may not even necessarily be like terrible, but if it's not what God has for you, why would you want it? Also, when you surrender your will, and this is going back to the point I made earlier. I'm sorry if this is all over the place. Going back to like when it's hard to surrender the things that you really want over to God and pick up God's will, we are literally called to die to our flesh, to take up our cross daily. So dying to your flesh is literally sometimes going to feel like death. You handing over that thing to God that you really want may, in all actuality, feel like you're dying on the inside, because literally we're supposed to be dying to our flesh. So it is gonna feel like death. But I mean, the beautiful thing about it is when you die to your flesh, your spirit man is being built up. That ultimately is like an amazing thing about following Jesus. Like, your spirit man is what really feeds you. Like, our flesh, like, this is like wasting away. Our spirit man is what is going to last and be like in eternity. So for that to be being built up also is evidence that God is working in you, and the world is like starting to lose its grasp of you. But it's not easy. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I didn't have to go back. Like I told y'all, I had to go back. If I'm being honest, it was several times daily that I had to surrender back to God, because I realized, oh, I think I'm fixating on my will again. I think I need to go back to God. And I was honest with God. Was I embarrassed? Yeah, but I was honest, and God is there for you to talk to. And I think there's so much about shame that, like, people always say, like, keeps you away from God. But literally, that's our indication to run back to God, because we know we can't do it on our own. And I do want to say, in me, in God giving me a taste of what I thought I wanted, I'm grateful that he did, because I feel like it spared me from even lingering in the my will thing for any longer. In that specific area, I was like, I don't want it. You let me see. I saw enough. I don't want it. And just God was so gracious in that. And I'm grateful that everything happened the way it did. But now the challenge for me will still be continuing to make sure that I'm seeking God's will above all else. And it's honestly funny. I filmed this video a little bit ago, but it was just a hot mess. My hair, my everything, my outfit, it just was a mess. But it was not the right time. And I think after that, God kind of like was walking me through the situation again, but in a different way. And I'm just like, even down, God is literally so funny. Even down to the things that we're doing for God, like ministry, our job, whatever, if it's really not within his will or his timing for something to happen, you can rest assured everything is gonna go wrong. And that goes back to the point, I just love that. That goes back to the point I make about God giving us a taste of what we think we want, so we can just sit down and be like, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm going to wait until you tell me to move. I'm gonna wait until you tell me to do anything, because clearly every time I try to do it in my own strength, and that's what our will is, us trying to do things in our own strength, it never works out. So I'm gonna sit here and wait. And there are hard times though, like when you really feel like pressing forward in the things that you want, but it's ultimately like, God, I am here for you. Whatever you want me to do, like, I am your servant. I owe you my life. So in whatever way you say I need to be doing something or not doing something, that's what I am or am not going to do. But I am literally so excited for more of these faith chats. I just want to like be able to express how I feel like God is working in and through me and the lessons he's teaching me, because these are actual like real life lessons that are going on in my life. And I'm super excited to be able to share that with you guys. And I just really like, my hope for these faith chats is for us to be able to talk and relate about things that God is doing in our life, because following Christ is literally the most beautiful thing ever, but it is tough. And I think maybe in some of my videos in the past, I didn't really share the toughness to the degree that I could share, or even know how to articulate that. But I just feel like where I am now, there are certain things that I struggle with, and I'm like, literally me too, when people say they're going through that. And I want other people to be able to watch these faith chats and say, girl, me too. Like, it was just yesterday. It was literally just 5 minutes ago, actually, that I wanted something, but I had to put it at the feet of Jesus and be like, God, I don't have a pretty prayer. I don't have a pretty answer. I'm just coming to you again. I'm gonna try to leave this at your feet. Like, help me through the process. And that's literally what our faith walk is. Nothing about it has to be perfect. It's just like honest to where you are. I would love to hear you guys' feedback. If there is anything I said in this video, or you're struggling with allowing God to have his will in your life, please write it down in the comments so we can discuss it. I want this to be like we're one big family, so we're able to like talk about these things so that we can become better and not just continue persisting the same way that we have been, but like God can really like change and work in us. So this is my encouragement to you guys. You got it. Remember to surrender your will to God, pick up his will. It's literally always so much better. So much better. Take it from me. You don't even have to get a taste of what you think you want. Just ask God what he wants for you, because when you get the taste, you're going to be like, I'm good. I'm very good. But thank y'all so much for watching. I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.
Don't believe in failures in my life. It's only lessons. They just make